Meantime, let's bring in tonight's political panel. Biden DNC delegate and Democratic strategist Desiree Tims from Ohio. Love that. Along with Republican representative from the great state of New York, Claudia Tenney. I want to begin with you, Desiree. I want to get your reaction to the president continues to have interesting conversations. Some people would suggest he's lost a step, a little bit off the fastball. Here's what he told Howard Stern about attending the dinner tomorrow night when, in fact, he's referring to a dinner he attended last month. Listen to this.
I'm doing the gridiron dinner on Saturday.
Right.
And one of the things, the serious thing I'm going to say at the gridiron dinner is that paraphrasing Jefferson, he said the choice between what we have and a free press, I'd pick a free press.
Listen, anybody can misspeak. It happens to all of us. How concerned are you as a Democrat? I know you have to say the right thing and wave the flag, but between us, are you concerned at all when you hear things like that, where this sort of seems to happen a lot lately?
I'm not concerned. The reality is the president is very busy. He has a very busy schedule, and there's a lot happening in the world.
True.
So I think he misspoke. He did sort of clean it up there and talk about the free press, and so obviously he knows he's going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I'm sure he's preparing his jokes and his entire routine. Both presidents, former presidents, look, they're up in age. They have senior moments. I have senior moments. And so I think, yeah, it's a gaffe, and we kind of wish he didn't have those, but it happened, and he cleaned it up. So
he did his best to clean it up. I thought you handled that well. Speaking of freedom of the press, I want to get your reaction to this and yours as well, Congresswoman Tenney. This is actually a statement from the New York Times, and they're talking about this idea of a free press, when in fact this president seems to continue to refuse to be available for interviews. This is from the Times. For anyone who understands the role of the free press in a democracy, it should be troubling that President Biden has so actively and effectively avoided questions from independent journalists during his term. Mr. Biden has granted far fewer press conferences and sit-down interviews with independent journalists than virtually all of his predecessors. I know this is a little political, Claudia, but at least from my perspective, I think there's a very good point to be made by the Times here. It's almost as if the White House is keeping him in the basement.
I think that's absolutely true. And it's even more astounding coming from the New York Times. And look, the New York Times is normally somewhat of a propaganda megaphone for the Democrats. And that's what that's why President Biden needs to get out there. But of course, we know when he gets out there, it's a rambling commentary. And the idea of him debating President Trump right now would probably be a very, very difficult situation. Now, remember, these two faced each other in debates in the last election, but President Trump actually had COVID, which we found out later in his first debate. And he was also president and probably didn't take Biden as seriously as he should. But now, I'm looking at Biden and I think Trump would eat him alive. And I don't mean to reference, Uncle Bozy getting killed by cannibals. I mean, this is going to be a terrible situation for Biden and really could risk the presidency if he were to actually debate President Trump, who is actually obviously much more able, more humorous, more genuine than career politician filled with stale talking points like Joe Biden.
Well, he's going to have his work really cut out. I want to share a very quick montage, some false statements in that Howard Stern interview. I know I'm picking on you a little bit, Desiree, but you're tough. You can take it. Listen to what the president said, and maybe you can help him clean up some of his, call them misstatements. Listen.
Anyway, besides, I used to drive an 18-wheeler. He got shot down in New Guinea. And they never found the body because there were a lot of cannibals for real in that part of New Guinea. Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell.
None of that's real. Where's all this coming from, and how do you as a strategist try to move around it when they have these gaffes?
I think we focus on the Biden wins, and the reality is Biden's policy agenda is extremely strong and has been really successful. And so when we talk to voters on the ground and the base, they're excited about what Joe Biden is doing for them. They aren't as concerned with the gaffes or any things that situations where he may have misspoke. What they like is what he's doing for them and how he's delivering. And so I think if there is a debate, which I think there should be a debate, I am fully prepared to see Joe Biden win that debate. He was strong even when President Obama had his debates and didn't have great nights. Joe Biden came and swooped in and sort of laid down the hammer. So I feel pretty confident when we put Joe Biden up against Donald Trump in a debate.
Congresswoman Tenney, last 15 seconds. Desiree says all systems go. I kind of would like to see it myself. What say you?
I think it's going to be great television, but I think President Trump is going to prove to everyone that we were better off under President Trump, and the policies of President Biden are reflected in the polls. He's at almost his worst level in his entire presidency, and one of the worst polling numbers that we've seen in a president in the modern era. So President Trump's, we're seeing gas prices rising, you're seeing inflation continuing to persist, and we're seeing Americans struggling all across, even upstate New York, where we have high taxes, and the middle class is getting carved out and really hurting under President Biden. That's why you see even people who might not like President Trump, they might not like him personally, but they love his policies. And I think everyone's looking for the debate between the two of them. It's going to be definitely an event.
Well, that union member speaking earlier this week spoke, I think, for lots of folks, perhaps. Congresswoman, it's always a pleasure. Desiree, great to have you in studio with us.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.